Welcome to the shit show, boys and girls. All right, uh, you got any ideas on what you want to do as far as topics and order?
I got a couple ideas on topics. I think it'd be good to lead off with talking about the Russian coup that wasn't a coup. Um, Less so about the fallout of that and whatever that was, and more about how do you deal with something like that,
More like whatever that is,
or like,
because it's still kind of there.
well, I'm just in terms of like events like this. How do you make sense of it given the
It's difficult.
shittiness
Yeah,
of the intelligence community. Let's be honest. Like the mainstream media, all sources I thought were some which I thought were pretty good were just wrong.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, yeah, the IC was horrible,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and I think it's hilarious how everybody just jumped on board, and it's amazing to me how many people actually like just followed along and went, okay, this is how this is gonna go. Um, Including the fact of like knowing that it's been so wrong so many times.
Well, and it was interesting because there were sources that I trusted for good information that have proven themselves reliable, and they were not all in agreement. Some were saying things were, oh, this is bad for Putin. It's not going to look really, really bad. This is not going to go well. Um, Very quickly it became like, oh, this is good for the people saying, oh, this is going to be. I wonder if this the yeah, I know.
You mean the NPCs who got the chips replaced in their head?
Well, the NPCs were hilarious, but just even the smart people were trying to parse the impact in Ukraine and saying this is going to have some kind of impact on Ukraine, on the Ukraine situation, on the outcoming of the war, whether or not Ukraine can rally their troops to make a counterattack, something.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I mean, here would be my statement on that is the fact that, uh, like, that tells me that they didn't think about it. If they'd done any thinking about it, that wouldn't be the case. They wouldn't have come up to that conclusion. Because in just thinking about it a little bit, I was like, this makes no sense. None whatsoever.
well, and that's the thing is, I think that there's a lot of people that are usually pretty smart and aware of things that have a huge blind spot around Russia.
Okay, this is
They
bothering me. I'm gonna have to change this. Boom. Sorry. We're back to where we were, I think. I don't know.
it's just like, okay, fine. Um, but
Don't judge me. Leave me alone. Or do, whatever. It's fine.
okay, the the Sean Fine agreeing with me aside, the like
Take note of
the
it. It's gonna be cool.
it's
It's
once in a lifetime.
not gonna happen often. So take your wins where you can
um,
get them.
I
And
told you this layout was better. That's all I'm saying. But
shut your mouth when you talk to me. Anyways, all right. So yeah, so trying to figure out how this all works, right?
yeah, I mean, so fundamentally, it's like you have sources you trust and some you don't. And so, how do you validate, especially when you have sources that are saying, "I have no idea what's going on," and other sources are saying, other sources are saying, "Here is what's happening. Here's the breakdown. Here's what this means." So, how do you, you know, curate your information environment? And perhaps maybe it's good to talk about an information environment to start with and what that means.
Yeah, I think that's where it starts, right? Number one, it starts with curating your information environment, which is an interesting practice and takes time and learning on how to do that. Uh, for me, that means, generally speaking, I try to find people who are suggested to me I will log things that they say
And when you
and
say find people, do you mean like Twitter, YouTube personalities?
references, yeah, anywhere, right?
Okay, so like
Like if
online people, sources.
yes, yeah,
Okay.
sources that are moving fast with information that you can get quickly, that are reacting quickly to what's going on. Um, because like for me to call, like to sit down and make a phone call to some of my friends, it's kind of difficult to try to time out when we can get together, talk about some of these things. It doesn't make right. Like, okay, or I can have people who, and let's be real, like you, to have friends that are subject matter experts across the board in all sorts of things is really difficult. It's better to try to outsource that to people who are, this is what they do, right? Like that is what their their whole goal, the thing that they enjoy. Let them dive into it. I don't need to learn it.
Right,
I just
right.
need to find people that I trust with that information. And generally how I vet those people is I listen to what they say and see if it comes true. Or I
Yeah.
go back through the information that they have, that they've put out there on, in the into the ether, and you can check to see how accurate it is or was. Now, the concern that runs with that, with checking historicals, is that people can delete stuff, they can change things, they can
Yeah.
edit, all that. So it's better to do in real time, but at least it gives you a starting point where if I go through and people are making calls of, let's just use like the stock market, for example, and they're saying up and it goes down and they're right
Cough, Jim Cramer.
50.
Cough.
Yeah, inverse Kramer. So let's, yeah, so that's the stuff like that, right? Like
Sure.
Jim Cramer became a meme because his info is so bad that they actually created an ETF. For anybody who's looking for it, it is SGIM, which is, I think, short Jim,
Short
if is
Jim. There's also
it
Hello
would be
Jim.
my guess.
It's not. I think it might not
Um,
be a bad time to get into that right about now. Just not a financial
and
advice.
that's because people were noticing that every time he was making calls, his calls were so bad that
Yep.
the market was just driving in the opposite direction. And so you could actually use somebody like Kramer as an inverse operator, right? Like you just know that
Well,
if
I
he
think there's
says Bitcoin's going to the moon, that it's probably time to sell all your stuff.
and there's absolutely that in the information environment as well. There are reporters that uh, are notoriously wrong, notoriously pushing things that are false or that go with the establishment narrative for the sake of the establishment narrative, or even
Definitely
just
not
their
Malcolm
own
Nance.
ideology. What's that?
I said, like, definitely not Malcolm Nance.
Stand by, stand by. But yeah, I mean, there are people that just make shit up,
Hmm.
and so it's not that. Whatever it is, it's not that,
Right.
and that can be in itself useful. So people are parroting the thing that it's not that. Those people don't do the research. They don't figure things out. Um, but I think it's also important to note how people are wrong. When people are wrong, what do they do? How do they react to it? Because nobody bats 1,000. And
Right.
I think you have people that will own being wrong, and that's I think a good source to recognize because they will get better.
They they should get better, and most will. My concern is I want to know what that, like, is their right percentage 60% and they're getting better, or is it 80% and they're getting better, or is it 90% and they're getting better?
Well, it doesn't mean you
I'm looking
shouldn't.
for sources that are 90% and getting and always improving. So if you're at 90% correct, and if you miss something, you go, "Hey, I missed that call. Sorry, like I'm gonna, it is what it is. Like you're not gonna be right 100% of the time." Then respect. But like there are people that even after all of this came out are still doubling down that like, "Oh no, it's not over. This is still." It's like, come on, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, right now
And so
They're trying to
Any of
piece together a narrative that fits the facts and their desire at the same time.
that's more accurate, I think. They're trying to piece together a narrative that fits what they want it to be, not what it actually is. And there's lots of theories going around, and I mean, you know, you
Well,
can
with the
you can theorize about stuff all the time. I had more respect for the people who were like, hold up, no idea. Here's the deal. I want to let's wait a little bit. Let's see what information comes out, and let's see where this goes. Those people I respected a whole lot more than the ones that were like, oh no, this is what happened, and this is gonna, it's the end of the world, and you know, and then you had the people that were cheering on Wagner that, or Wagner, or however you pronounce it, um,
yeah,
that
that was
just a just a few months ago were like, not even a month ago, like a month ago, we're like, these people are the devil,
well, I
and now
think
you're
that's a
cheering for them to because they're the enemy of my enemy is my friend type narrative, and it's like, do you really want, if they're kind of
well, that's
this
a
group
I
that
think
you
a
think that they are, do you really want them being in control of, like, you thought Russia's nuclear codes were great to have in the hands of Putin, but you think like this Wagner group is better?
well, and I think that's another one of the mistakes of the sense making is this like I mean, there's a couple things there. One, there's the narrative fitting. When there's not a lot of information, it's pretty easy to get whatever narrative you want to fit. Right? You can make up when there's very little facts about what's going on the ground. You can make things up. You could say there's a whole platoon of Russian soldiers dead and they're marching to Moscow, and if nobody knows anything, maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. And you can kind of make it out to rumors and speculation become the fuel for this. And I think the reality is in this time, the people saying, man, I don't know, well, you got to just wait and see, are the ones you should sort of mark in the correct column, kind of as a result of that, even if somebody's guess kind of turns out to sort of be correct. But then there's also there's the aspect of like what you're talking about, where people were cheering on Wagner, take down Putin. It's like, you don't, that would be worse for, like a lot of them were doing it pro Ukraine, and that would be worse for Ukraine. Like it'd be horrible for Ukraine. Like it would
Oh yeah,
not,
those are the guys that were like, no, let's just go in and crush everything. Like
like
they'll just light up the sky.
they may nuke Kiev. Like they may nuke it just because these guys,
Because they can.
they, yeah, basically because they want to defeat their enemy and they want to use the weapons at their disposal. Like
Okay,
that's what they think. These guys are not the guys you want in charge. So rooting for them is vastly ignorant. Like
agreed.
that. This was a big thing that you saw Jack Posobiec on was this is not good for Ukraine. The best case for Ukraine is this goes nowhere. And he was fighting a bunch of people on this, like both left and right. And it was bizarre to see some people defend, like the sides people came down was weird.
It showed you where a lot of people actually stand, though, which is good.
Oh no, I mean this is why I like this as a case study because I think
It's it's great for your info environment.
it's
It's
fantastic.
absolutely
It's
wonderful
healthy. It's healthy.
because you know who you can kick out like immediately. Like if they were wrong and they doubled down, pound sand. I'm out. I don't need to listen to you anymore.
Yeah. And I mean
And
there's
maybe there's some of them that are speaking, and I think this is true on a lot of people, is they're people that are speaking outside of their field of expertise, and they shouldn't be, right? If you're an
all
economics
the
guy,
memes.
like stop talking about what's going on in a war that you have no clue about. Like you don't even know where Ukraine is on a map, and there's been a war there for a year.
Oh, and it's I love there was there are memes about this, the expertise whiplash. First, at the beginning of the week, you were an expertise on uh, oceanography and submarines with the Titan, and at the end, you're an expertise on geopolitical affairs in Eastern Europe. Like that, like just boom, I know everything, and it's just when
Yeah.
people start doing that,
I
That's when
think
you
the
got to be
biggest
concerned.
problem, like for me, the biggest problem is people who, like you said, are experts that are so headstrong that they just know. Like that to me is a sign of, I would say, mid to low intelligence.
It's
Usually
usually
it's
a sign
the
that,
midwits that are just smart enough to think that they're smart, but not actually know anything. Like when it came to the Titan sub, and I had no idea. I had a guess, like this is what I think potentially happened, but I got no clue. And as more information came out, I was like, oh, this doesn't sound good at all.
yeah, I
And the
mean,
same thing, like, I mean, well, like I can, I'm gonna say this on stream. Like you sent me a text message about this situation with Ukraine and Russia, and what did I tell you?
wait and see.
I said I
Yeah.
think it's a nothing burger, but I have no idea. Like I'm gonna hold my like I'm gonna give it 24, 48 hours, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and I kind of like the first thing I looked at the sources I trust on the Russian topics, and they're like, this doesn't smell right. This is off. This isn't going anywhere. This doesn't seem like this can succeed. And then I'm looking at more sources, and nothing smelled right. Right now, I'm kind of wondering if this was something that just ran away from what's his name,
Prigozhin.
Prigozhin. Um, like maybe there were some people underneath him that ran away with it or something. Like I don't know, but it it seems like because he was very quickly trying to do a lot of backpedaling, is
You
from
know
what I
why?
hear, because he didn't have support.
Because he didn't have the support he thought he had, right? So one thing is, from what I understand, he thought he was going to have support and backing from some of the members of the military and potentially like the elites or the upper class, and he didn't get any of that. It really
Yeah,
showed that Russia as a country, the political class, the elites, and the plebs are all behind Putin, all in on this thing. And it's like, okay, maybe I need to stay out because this is not looking good. Like they're on a mission, they're on a tear. I wouldn't get in the way.
maybe.
But what most people are not aware of is that, remember, I think I sent you a message about this that I think I sent you somebody's tweet about that uh, they were calling the Chechen forces in.
Yeah, yeah, I saw
So
that.
turns out, from what I understand, I don't know. I'm not there. Let's be clear about that. It's just from my sources. My understanding is that they encircled Rostov and just like encircled the outside of the city, and we're like, oh, so you went to the head of like our headquarters for the military in in this city. Cool. You now can't leave the city.
Yeah, I mean
I
it's
mean,
I
like,
don't. Part of this is I
oops.
saw very early reports that this was being called a a like a march on Moscow, kind of like a march on Washington that we had, where it was more of like a protest.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, well that could be a cover for like if you're going to have a coup, that's what you would start by calling it, right? You try to say, oh, we're peaceful until you actually start shooting. You're going to pretend to be peaceful.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know. So, but
And
I don't really want to get too into it because it's still sort of evolving, and we
oh,
don't
it
have
absolutely is.
we don't have
I
like any
I don't know
information.
what. Yeah, I don't. I like. I'll tell you right now. Like I have my theories on what happened, and my theory on what happened changed since the last time we talked. So
Oh, I'm sure this will be
I've
one of like,
I think it'll be just as you get more information and as more stuff comes out, and really, I think a lot of it you won't really know for 6 months, a year, because I think a lot of it will depend on what happens with Prigozhin being exiled to Belarus, right?
yeah, I
And that's a for now thing, but like say the Ukraine Russia conflict comes to an end tomorrow, does that mean are they going to allow him back? Come back to Russia
I
because the fighting is over now, or is he going to be like, no, you can't come back to Russia or we will arrest you? because from my understanding of what I've heard and read is that that part of the deal was that any of the um, Wagner fighting crew got basically pardons, but
Yeah,
that
basically
didn't
the
that didn't
troop.
extend to Prigozhin,
Well, it sort of sounded
which
like it was the organizers are traitors and the troops were misled. Is basically the stance of the Russian government.
yeah, something along those lines. I mean, like from what again from what I'm
But
hearing is that um, uh, that anybody who didn't join in this thing is was given an opportunity to sign a contract with the Russian MOD, and so they could go basically directly into service and continue in battling in the war. Otherwise, you were stuck in Wagner Group, and I don't think that they're going to see. I don't think
well,
that those guys, that the Wagner Group will be used in this conflict again, according to kind of what I people are thinking.
yeah,
And so that's it's.
yeah,
I think it'll be a while for us to figure out what actually happened. I think the
but
biggest thing to pay attention to from a sense making standpoint is to just keep in mind for all of you out here, anybody who's watching this, like this, it's always that the lie makes it around the world before the truth gets its boots on, right? Just remember that. Like wait 24, 48, 72 hours, reserve
well, it's,
judgment until you get more information. Unless it's something you have to act on immediately, hold up. Like just chill for a
well, and I
minute.
think I think there's some important aspects in there. Like earlier, you alluded to talking to your buddies about this sort of stuff, and I do think that's an important part of sense making. If your friends are participating in the sense making process, like so, if your friends are good at curating their info environment, then they're great to have a discussion with because they may talk to different people, they may know different things, but you got to be aware of where each of you stand in terms of relying on each other for this. Like Sean, you and I, we talk like we have very similar info environments. We're curating, we follow the same people, and so there's a lot of I'm more likely to give wild theories and stuff and speculation just kind of for fun rather than like I'm seriously considering this a possibility.
Well, I mean, like in
And
fairness, there's a lot of overlap in our info environments, right? In our curated info environments.
right.
Now,
And
how we interpret that sometimes is slightly different, but
well,
as a
but
whole, we're getting a lot of the same information.
sure, but what I'm getting at is, and I've seen you do this, where we throw out sort of theories we don't think are necessarily particularly likely, but they're fun,
Oh yeah,
and like it's fun to play
non-zero
with. It,
probability.
yeah, and it's like, well, what if this happened? Wouldn't that be exciting and theatrical?
What's the chance that Russia's gonna nuke Kiev?
It's
Very
non-zero.
low, but it's a non-zero probability.
It's well, it's. I wish it was lower. Let's just
And
say.
well, I think part of that, like if you go down that route, like I think part of that depends on like what happens in between. Like there are things that could go on that increase that percentage. I think currently, right now, I think that percentage is real low, like
I think
less
it's
than
the lowest.
5%.
I think it's the lowest it's ever been in the conflict.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you could argue that. I don't,
I just certainly close. Like it's, and that's more of an aspect of why would Russia do that? I mean that is
I
the
know,
other
yeah.
important aspect of sense making is look at motivations, play it out as to why. Like why would like it's the whole what would it when someone like the theory that Russia blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline or is it the
One and two.
one and two?
Yeah,
Okay,
one and two.
why why would Russia do that? They control the entry point. They could just shut it off. Like unless there's this is some kind of burn the boat situation, which doesn't make any sense.
still doesn't make sense because you could still just shut it off and you could just destroy it on your end.
Right,
It's
you
not a
could
big
shut it
deal.
off in a way that was slightly easier, cheaper to repair, let's say. Still takes as much time,
Rather
but
than having
cheaper.
divers to go down, what is it, 120 feet to the bottom of the channel to fix that? Yeah, I would say
Oh,
so.
by the way, someone I thought an interesting theory when this has happened. Everybody's like, "Oh, is Ukraine? Oh, is US?" I think it was pretty much each like of the big NATO allies, everybody participated. It's the classic everybody stabs Caesar. But
Maybe.
like it if one goes down, we all go down kind of thing. Um,
Well, I mean,
but
the problem is that means you include Germany in that, right?
yep.
You think Germany, I mean, sabotage your own country? I mean, they did.
Have you
Never
looked
mind.
at their policies?
I hold that back. Let me retract my previous statement because as I think about it, I'm like these morons are imposing sanctions that are cratering their economy and are going to send them into one of the deepest
Like
depressions or recessions since the
like
1930s.
let's be honest, self-sabotage is their playbook in the Ukraine conflict.
Oh, yeah,
So
that has been their
like
milieu since the beginning of this. Yeah,
yeah, someone was like it was a US Navy boat, British divers with some
German
French help,
dynamite.
and like Germans were involved in like the intelligence or something, targeting,
Doesn't
I
matter.
something like that. But anyway, there was an interesting theory that I'm inclined to believe because it fits. But like it fits their motivation, it fits the facts we know of, and it makes
It's a little wild
sense.
though.
It's a little, I mean,
It's a
it's a
little difficult to
little
like
wild.
how did you coordinate all of these different groups and
I mean,
nobody said anything
um,
unless none of them survived it, which is possible.
but I mean, these are all like we constantly do allied operations with in top secret stuff that no one talks about. Like there's
Yeah.
constantly you hear U.S. Navy SEALs working with German Special Forces or British SAS in places that none of them are supposed to be.
Well, that's because they're not there.
Yeah, but
I mean,
I've talked to a
they
few former SEALs that were in places
not
they weren't.
yeah, not in places they yeah,
They were in places they weren't in. They weren't
correct.
there. Um, so and it's like, oh yeah, we were there with a German guy and a French guy and a British guy, and it's like, okay, so you were all not there, but you were there. Okay,
Correct.
so the
Now you're
idea that
understanding.
you could get a bunch of people that weren't on a Navy destroyer to not dive deep down in the ocean and then definitely not plant explosives. Um, that didn't happen. No,
Yeah.
couldn't possibly. I mean,
It,
like it is a little outlandish, but
it's like I'm not saying it's zebras, but it's maybe more like Zorses,
okay,
right?
right?
Like
Like,
for those who don't get the reference, when people are talking about like thinking through things, the the they say, keep it simple and think about like when you hear hoof beats, think horses, not zebras. And so like it's not I'm not saying it's all the way to zebras, but it might be
right.
Zorses. Like
It's
it would be
hoofbeats,
much
and people
simpler to just
claim they saw
send
some stripes. So
yeah. Like I think it would. Obviously, it's much easier to just send a crew in and go do it, right?
yes,
With everybody
but
else understanding that, hey, stay out of this area because you want plausible deniability. Like, just
right,
stay away from here. Turn all your sonars and radars and stuff like that off. That'd be great because magically none of that's on any kind of anybody's stuff.
yeah,
But the Titan sub, we knew about it whenever it imploded. So you're telling me you couldn't hear divers in the water who set charges on metal pipes? Mm, I have a
I
hard
mean,
time believing that.
in fairness,
Hard
they
time.
probably knew there was an explosion on the Nord Stream. I'm not sure they can pick up divers. A submarine imploding is a lot louder than a diver.
It's a very small strait, sir. And I guarantee you they're watching it constantly because that is one of the places that
Yeah.
Russian subs go in and out of all the time. So if one were trying to track Russian subs, you'd be paying real close attention to that stretch of water. I'm
Yeah.
just
I mean,
hypothetically,
that is a very
hypothetically.
good point. Like,
I don't buy it. I did just,
oh, I mean,
I was
they
born
know
at
who
night, but
did
it was
it.
not last night.
They know who did it, and they don't want to say because they like the people that did it.
Sure.
That may
Well,
or
they
may
may
not
not
be the
even,
same.
let's be clear, they may not even like the people that did it, but they approve of the outcome. So
Yes.
we're going to just keep our mouth shut because, again, the enemy of our enemy is our friend.
Right, but I mean, if it was Russia, if it was actually Russia, they would be like, we have acoustic sonar
Oh,
saying it
yeah.
was Russian divers coming from the. Yeah, it
Oh
wasn't
no,
Russia.
they would have time stamped it and said, yeah, we detected this underwater stuff going on at this time, which is odd because this
Right.
Russian boat is directly above that. Seems strange,
Yeah,
right? Like you're telling me that the U.S. Navy didn't have tracked every boat that's in and out of that area?
and it would be
It's
beautiful. It would be beautiful for their cause getting all of Europe involved.
right,
Oh, your heat's out? It's because Russia evil.
right.
Like,
Which was the plan, right? Like that was what they were saying is, oh, you can't get Russian gas through this anymore because they blew up this pipeline. And
right.
I think the problem is that they believed that they could sell that narrative, and people went, "Don't they have the valve? Like they can just turn it off, right? Like
Yeah.
if I'm in my house, does it make more sense that I turned off the gas to my house or I just instead went in, found a line somewhere and decided to strap dynamite to it and blow it up so that I couldn't get gas into the house anymore?"
Or the gas company going in and like smashing the pipe, digging down into your dirt and smashing the pipe rather
Right,
than just going over there and fixing the valve or turning off the valve.
right.
Like,
Turn
it's
off the valve, put a lock on it. Ta-da!
yeah,
So you think instead they're gonna break into my house and then like damage the lines inside the house somewhere? That
right.
doesn't track.
And if they just blew up their own facility, there wouldn't even be an international incident.
Right.
So like, if they needed to destroy it, why not do it at the main line and
Well,
coming into my house and thus.
I don't I don't know I don't know who paid for all of it, but it was my understanding that Russia was paying for all of these lines. Like they were paying for installing all of this. So if that's the case, then if that's their infrastructure, like if they feel like blowing it up, blow it up.
I mean, that's if that's true, then yeah. But no, but this is classic sense making. Is like, why would you look at motivations? Look at why they would do it.
Right,
Look at how the world would have to be for that to be true.
right.
What would you see? What would the world look like in that regard? And then try to look for that evidence. Try to prove it. Look, make a prediction, and seek it out. Um, it's theories are bizarre, and the cope. Oh my God, have we run out of copium yet?
No, it's a renewable resource.
Clearly.
Sorry, like these people just like I don't know what to tell you. Like it's nuts. When I
I
look at it and I
mean,
talk to people and they're like, "Oh yeah," and I'm like, "You what?"
like the amount of people thinking that Russia's winning,
I
like, or
yeah,
Russia's losing. Sorry, Like the like
No, no, I get you. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, okay, so if that's the case, if Russia is losing, like, have you looked at a map lately? Just
I mean,
saying.
like
Like, every time we kept hearing about new fighting, and it was, this town and then this town and this town. If you just took the time to Google search where those were and you tracked it on your own map in your own house, you would know that ain't the case. Like, it's just the Russians inching closer and closer and taking up,
right. Well, some of it
conquering
is
more land.
granted, some of it is confusing to Westerners because it follows a different war doctrine than the U.S. and NATO do.
Yeah.
Like it's and some of this is actually
Time,
reminiscent
Utley.
of the U.S. Civil War, where it was not about controlling land; it was destroy their armies. So,
Right.
like Bakhmut, um, they encircle it and they just let people keep coming in because when your enemy is doing something stupid, do not interrupt them. If they encircled it, then no more people get funneled into the grinder. Like
Well,
that
even
was
better, if you, e- even better than that is if you go look at it, um, and go back and pay attention to what Prigozhin was doing. He was egging them on.
oh yeah.
Oh no, please don't send more people. We're gonna lose so badly. More people, more people, more people.
Well, and that was one of the things people brought up with the recent non-coup was that Prigozhin would constantly say, "Oh, we don't have enough ammo. We need more ammo. We need," and then like continuously fight, like expending massive amounts of ammunition day in day out against the Ukrainians. So it's very clear he's used to saying one thing and then doing another.
Well, and there's a theory out there that perhaps he was doing that to get sent more ammo so that he could then stockpile it specifically for this occasion.
Yeah, there's
I
a
don't know if that's the case, but
well, and
there's a
that's
case that
again
could be made for that.
comes down to sense making. It's like look
Right.
at what you got to you got to retroactively update what you think was going on with the narratives. And a lot of narratives are going to be proven false. Most narratives are going to be proven false to some degree. Most
Oh yeah,
stories that people are going to spin
yeah.
about what's going on are going to be proven to false to some degree. So you can't just be like, well, you were wrong about this. You got to look at like degrees and specifically around how actionable, what
Well,
was the
and
action you would take as a result of this information and how wrong was that action?
I mean, to me, it's more about like, were you generally right and just maybe some of the specifics were off, or were you like legitimately like wrong, right? Like that's that to me, that's how I look at it. Whenever I'm looking at it, it's like if you're directionally correct,
Right,
if you say, "Hey, I think we're going north," and Jim Bob over here says, "No, man, we're headed west," and turns out we're going north northwest, well,
right,
you're correct. You were off by a touch, but I'll give that to you because you didn't have all the information or tools. Jim Bob over here, like, Jim Bob, we're not listening to you anymore. You're dumb. Sorry.
right, right. And and some of it is, I'd even say like, it's almost even, I mean, if it's one of those things. I even say it's because the truth is all about predictability. Like that is the fundamental value of truth over fiction is that the truth is predictive. So if someone gives you a narrative where the actions you'd likely take as a result of that narrative are the correct actions, even if the narrative is not technically correct, but you were taking the correct actions, it was close enough.
Right.
It's
Yeah,
because it's
that's what I'm saying is they don't have to be perfect, right?
right.
I'm not saying you have to be 100% dead on. I'm just saying you need to be directionally accurate. If you're directionally accurate, then
Sure. And I'm just kind of clarifying. Direction means more about the actions you've taken. Because if someone says, um, you know, oh, you need to get inside because there's going to be nuclear fallout, and actually it was
yeah,
just toxic
right.
chemicals. Well, okay. Was taking shelter inside still the good advice? Yes. Okay, then listen to that guy because he
And
was right about
also,
what you should do.
yeah, also to clarify, is that maybe there may be no action associated, right? It may just be for future reference when there might be action that's required.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
I just want to make sure that if people are looking at things, that they're thinking about that like, well, but it didn't affect me. Like this coup thing at this point didn't affect anybody in the Western Hemisphere whatsoever. Now, potentially could it have? Eventually, maybe, yes, okay, but there's an argument that could be made either way. As far as most average people's daily lives, no impact. So it's more about that is just a litmus test for you to be able to identify good sources of information
Oh, yes. I mean,
for the
there's
future
no
for future
reason we
use.
should. There's no
And
reason anybody should have been sticking their in this to put a to make a claim about what's going to happen. No reason. There's except for like, the people that were covering the Russian-Ukraine conflict were not saying anything because the impact on that was kind of known already, regardless of what would happen, and largely minimal in the
yeah,
short term. Like, will Ukraine do something? If they do something, maybe they can take advantage of it, or maybe they'll get caught thinking that walking into a trap of some kind. Like, those are the two options. And Ukraine did nothing, so nothing happened.
speaking of
And
which,
like, it's
have
so
you
the fact
seen
that
the video
everybody's
that's
trying.
on Twitter now?
The what?
The video that's up on Twitter?
No, I don't think so. Unless we're talking about the Pride Parade shit. No.
A bunch of Ukrainians got caught in a minefield. It's not pretty.
Oh, well, yeah, they got caught in a minefield.
I don't know how it's still up on Twitter to be honest with you, because it's
Like, is it like somebody walked and they realized they're in a minefield, now they're stuck in a minefield? Or
oh, it's worse than that. Like it's 10, 11 minutes of they realize that they're in a minefield. There's guys that are injured. They're trying to exfil them and taking casualties as they're trying to exfil them.
like, if people they're being shot at while they're trying to exfil, or they're
Yeah.
yeah,
They're not taking any fire.
yeah, that's nasty.
So
Um,
two things that came away from that for me, like I'm sitting there watching and it's like, one, these people are not professionals.
no, that's
Whoever that is in this outfit, I don't feel like I could be wrong, but I don't feel like they're professionals because if they were, they've got a I think I think people were saying it was a Bradley, but either way, it's an APC, right? It's an
right.
armored personnel carrier. It's a tracked vehicle, right?
Mhm.
And they're lowering the back hatch, and people are getting out of it, walking across open ground to go try to recover these wounded. And like, there's people that are like they get to the wounded, they haul them back, they go back out after another one, walk across basically the same piece of ground and just step wrong and done.
I mean,
There's another guy that they back up. He he jumps out and kneels down on one. Yeah.
oh man,
But
it's
I'm like,
just
you have a vehicle. Why are you not backing all the way up to these people, dropping the hatch? Because you've got a freaking 6 foot door on that thing or something like that. Why don't you
right.
get it so close that they can just like you can just reach out and grab them?
And I mean,
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can't do that, but it just like they
there could be fear
eventually
that there's
did. So they've
AT.
got to be able to.
I mean, there could be fears that anti-tank mines in there intermixed. But I mean, maybe like
I mean, the
we're taking the
alternative
risk.
is yeah, the alternative is gruesome. Let's go with that.
Like you just you
Very.
empty out the Bradley, so there's nobody in there except the driver. You back it you so if it gets taken out, at least you've got people still around that can figure it out. Um, you back it up as close as you can. You'll probably have some popping. Maybe you disable the track or something. But okay, get them in the Bradley and then pull the Bradley out.
Right.
Congratulations, you got them out of a minefield in half the time.
Instead,
Um,
instead you turned 2 or 3 wounded into 8.
Oh man. Oof.
Yeah,
And like, granted, I'm not a military expert. I could be
I'm
wrong,
not
but
either.
it what you described sounds like a clusterfuck.
Yes.
And they were not acting deliberately. That's very clear. And so they were acting wrong. Just based on that alone, if you are not acting deliberately, you are acting wrong.
Well, I don't know if they were not acting deliberately because I feel like they might have been. I just don't think that they were.
I should say,
I think
okay.
they lacked leadership and they weren't thinking through the second and third order consequences of what they were going to do. It was like, I have to save my buddy, so I'm going to just jump out and go grab him. And
Yes.
oh, my foot's gone now.
And I should
That's
say
a problem.
they weren't deliberately addressing the minefield. It's perhaps a better way of phrasing this.
Sure. Yeah.
Like they were acting deliberately, but they were not acting deliberately addressing them like towards the minefield. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. And it was just
Sure.
but I've heard stories about this where there are no professional soldiers in Ukraine left. And the ones that were have left to the degree that they could because they were being sent on the like the officer corps is dog shit. Like they're just
I
being
mean,
sent on suicide missions for the sake of propaganda.
yeah. So there, there was another video that I came across today, yesterday, can't remember. Um, and this one I can't like in the one that I'm talking about. I feel very confident because all of these guys were rolling with blue tape on their arms,
Mm-hmm.
right? Feel very confident those are Ukrainian. Um, in this video that I saw, I don't have any idea. I don't speak Ukrainian or Russian,
Right.
so I couldn't even begin to translate it. But it says that it's supposedly another video of an officer taking out part of his corps because they were refusing orders. And yeah, they're in like a bunker, and like like you can hear them kind of like discussing and kind of arguing back and forth. And there's him and there's I don't know. It sounds like there's 2 or 3 different voices that he's discussing with. He walks out to the front of the deal. One of the guys that's standing outside hands him a grenade. He hands the camera over to them, pulls the pin and chunks it back in. And you see the dust cloud. Like it's not like, oh, he threw a grenade and then the video ends. It's like, poof.
Yeah, that's not good.
It doesn't do
Um,
good things for morale,
no, and it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm not going to, instead of saying I won't do that, sir, I'm just going to shoot him.
which supposedly has happened because there
Like
have
you,
been guys there's been videos that they got ordered to go on essentially a death run mission, and they were like, that's not going to happen. He was like, oh yeah, it is, and then he turned his back and somebody done.
yeah. I mean, because that's the thing is if you, I mean that is arguably worse. If you have an officer that frags his own men, and that guy is not like drawn and quartered, then you will have lots of people revolting against your officers.
You would think.
I mean, it's inevitable. Like
I would. I
if this
mean,
gets out,
if this stuff kind of if this stuff
which
continues
it
to happen and
does.
it gets out, it's lights out. Like you'll have desertions. Like let's be honest. Like if I was in the Ukraine army and I heard about this, you think I wouldn't just like sneak away in the dead of night and go join the Russian side?
Well, and
I
what
can't go
happens when?
home. Like I can't go to Ukraine because if I get caught, I'm
Well,
gonna get shot for desertion.
you can't go to uh, Western Ukraine,
Right.
and like that's the thing is it's you want to a few miles that way, it's fine.
Right.
Um, and it's and like you like combine that with you see these people with these videos of the Ukrainian recruiters that just the van of
That's not
guys.
recruiting. That
Yeah,
is
I
that is not even close. I
mm,
don't care what they like to call that. That is not. And I'm sorry, I take offense to it because that's against my family's people. So
yeah, but it's like
they're They're
there'll be like a
just
van pulling up and
throwing
then just
dudes into vans.
oh yeah, it's like two vans will pull up and they'll swarm a group of guys and throw them all in the van. And like there'll be military personnel doing this. So and it's like you say that you hear them, that's what they're doing is recruiting. They're conscripting these guys. These guys are draft dodgers basically. Whether that's true or not, who knows? But
16 to 60.
yeah, I don't. It may not be that much longer until you have entire sections of a line defect. Like, can you imagine if you have a line and let's say there's a junior officer who's in charge of who's just like, guys, I don't have a choice. They'll shoot me if I don't do this. I don't want to do this. And to find out, oh, he doesn't really. His wife is in Poland or something, right? So like, she's safer. And he's like, I'm gonna like, I want out, and all the guys below him are like, I want out too. None of us wanted to be here. This is ridiculous. And you have a whole section of the line this way, and they just go, okay, there's three people that are unwilling to go along. So we're going to deal with those three people. And then when one person is going to go, we're going to try to make contact with the Russian line to surrender. And they work out a deal like you will be rewarded in some way if you coordinate so that you surrender all at once and we just punch through the line here. Because it could be a mild trench line that you could get to defect.
I mean, yeah.
It's maybe
I don't.
not that much, but enough you might be able to punch through. It's the right spot.
I mean, I don't think it matters. Be honest
If
with you.
if it's one spot versus a
Not even that. No,
yeah,
I don't think it matters if you give. I don't think it matters that you give Russia a spot to punch through. I think Russia is capable of punching through anywhere at any time that they so choose. They've chosen not to. They've been, I mean, like if you look at it, really look at it, they have been highly restrained. If you
yeah.
compare it to how we went into, let's say, Iraq and Baghdad, I think we spent a month or 3 months of just constant bombing of Baghdad before we ever sent people in.
Well, and yeah, and I don't know. It's hard for me to get a good sense of whether or not, to what extent this is a display of Russia's capabilities versus Russians' war doctrine versus what their tactics are here. Um, I'm inclined to agree. They seemed very restrained, and I think this goes back to what I was saying, where they're trying to destroy the Ukrainian capacity for war, and trying to do so. They're trying to erode the Ukrainians' ability to wage war. And they know they're not just fighting Ukraine, they're fighting NATO in that regard, like the NATO supplies. So it doesn't
By,
matter if they hold
by
more
supplies, you
land.
mean troops?
From NATO, not so much yet.
Not so much, but that that's not a none at all.
This is in one of those areas where there are people that aren't there,
Right.
you know. So
Confirmed, not there.
yeah, they're definitely not there.
Definitely confirmed,
Do you know
not
where they
there.
are? No, I have no idea where they are, but they're definitely not there.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, yeah, so it's there's definitely those cases, but there's not. I don't think there's a huge number of
No,
those guys.
no, I
Um,
don't think so.
I think largely
There's
this is
some
just.
mercs.
Oh yeah,
There's some
there's
retired
some.
guys that I'm pretty sure have like a bunch of them.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot of like retire and then go there sort of stuff. Absolutely. Um, I
oh, I'm
most
not
of
even
them.
talking about that. I'm talking about people who were legitimately retired and then decided that they were going to go help Ukraine.
Oh yeah. But there's also people that have
But
been
yeah,
up for retirement that have gone over there.
sure.
But um, and have brought stuff with them. Let's say the um, but most of them just am looking at like wars are mostly about supply chains, right? Like logistics.
Sure.
And I think that is what's happening right now is you've got the whole backing of NATO logistics to try and
Well,
help
that's the
them.
only thing. Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing keeping Ukraine above board. If NATO wasn't helping them, this would have been over a long time ago.
Well, I'm not sure that Ukraine can realistically survive this as a country.
I bet
Like
they don't.
just the amount, the wear and tear on their population as a result of this is going to be catastrophic.
What population?
That's kind of my point.
I mean, most of the women have fled to other countries,
Yep.
and most of the men have died in war. You don't have a country. You don't have a population anymore.
Right. You
And and
just
and I say men, most of your fighting age men. Like
right.
it'll take 2 generations to build that back up. And let's be real, if like you know, war game this a little bit. If you're Russia, what's the point? Like you tried to play nice, and they've made it very clear that they're not going to come to the negotiating table. Then why would I even bother? Why wouldn't I just eliminate you?
I mean, I think that's what they're trying to do here. They're holding the line and letting this I think every month this is a favorable negotiating presence for Russia.
I don't think they'll negotiate.
They might depend like so
If you
but
were
I don't
Russia,
know.
would you negotiate? Like you gave them the opportunity to say, "Hey, let's draw some lines in the sand. Let's stop shooting each other, right? Let's call it good." Like we were pissed because y'all were attacking people who are historically Russian, that are ethnically Russian, that are Russian speakers, and they asked us to protect them. So we did. And now, hey, this is this is like boss coming in and saying, "Hey, we're not going to play that game. Chill out. Can we agree that we're not going to do this anymore?" And you acted like a petulant child and said, "Fine, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going home, and you can't tell me what to do." Well, guess what? You're wrong. They can,
Well,
and they're
I
going
mean,
to. And if I was in their position, no, you turned your nose up at a legitimate, decent offer. The more that I'm hearing about this, the offer that was proffered, it basically didn't it didn't it didn't include the four oblasts being becoming part of the Russian Federation, and there was even a potential and talk that I'm hearing of them renting Crimea, which means that Crimea would have gone back to Ukraine with Russia agreeing to lease that land or whatever. Like that's legit, dude. Like you can't
Russian.
ask for a better deal than that.
I mean, and I think part of it was like, that's a
And
sweetheart
Russia,
deal.
yeah, and Russia didn't walk away from the table. Ukraine did. Let's be very clear. Like anybody who has any qualms about that, like just understand
Have you?
that's not how it went. Ukraine walked away and said, "We're not doing this anymore."
So you know that whole the oh, they lost, they ran away from Kiev, or they were defeated at Kiev, or whatever. I've heard reports that they pulled out of Kiev as a sign of good faith for this deal. Have you been able to confirm that?
That's what I'm hearing from my sources as well.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
that's
you figure they drove,
makes
they
sense.
drove down into, dude, they were within, like I want to say it's like 20 kilometers of
Right.
Kiev, right? And then
Yeah.
stopped.
I-
Well, let's be clear. Anybody who doesn't know, Russian artillery will fire, standard Russian artillery will fire 27 kilometers, which means they could have just started bombarding Kiev with artillery fire from there, and there
Well,
wouldn't have
and
been
that's
anything anybody could have done about it.
and that is a someone was pointing out at the time, this is classic Russian war doctrine. Bombard the city, then enter it.
Right.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's uh,
I think it was a flex. Like, hey, I've got a like 40,000 troops, I think is what they said was in that. I can't even remember anymore. It's been a year ago. But like, hey, we have troops like outside the gates of your castle.
yep,
We're destroying whatever we want to and walking over things throughout the rest of the country over in the West. Do me a favor. Like, just sign the agreement and we don't stomp into, like, we don't walk into the Capitol and make you look stupid.
yeah,
And so they started negotiating, pulled, Russia pulled their troops back, and then you threw it in their face. Like, if I'm Russian right now, uh-uh. No, there is no more negotiation. I'm going to absolutely demolish your entire army will be destroyed before I walk, and I'm gonna make sure it happens.
I mean, I'm kind of wondering if Russia was just shocked that there was no ability to negotiate after just walking over them, and they just
I
didn't have
don't
a plan.
I don't think so. So they were negotiating because it's not that they didn't have the ability to negotiate. They were negotiating and they came close to a deal. What happened was is the West screwed it up. There was a deal announced that had been um, negotiated by Turkey, and when the West heard about it, if you go back and look at the timeline, Boris Johnson from the UK flew into Kiev like the next day and basically, from what I understand, told Alinsky, you can't go forward with this deal. We won't allow it. Don't do this. Or perhaps maybe they said, don't do it. We'll give you everything you need. You'll win. We'll make sure that you defeat Russia.
Yeah, I mean, he must have.
I
But
mean, I don't know what he told him, but
yeah,
whatever it was, it convinced him to back out the deal. And
I mean,
yeah,
it's hard for me to piece bad information I had, well, a mixture, some of it bad, some of it good that I had about it at the time with the stuff I'm hearing now and intersect those timelines. But yeah, but that's kind of what I was getting at. It's like I wonder if Russia's just like they won't let us like the West won't let us negotiate for peace. They insist on this war. So now it's not a war against Ukraine, it's a war against NATO. And I could, because there was a period where they just sort of didn't seem like they had a plan. Russia, I mean,
okay.
like they withdrew from Kiev and then they sort of just held for a while and kind of slowly lost ground. And I kind of got the sense that they were changing tactics to something else, like looking
I think
back on
that's,
it.
yeah, I mean, I think that's probably fairly accurate. But you have to
Because
figure with the amount of the amount that they rolled in, they I think they expected that well, two things happened. Like I remember they had some of the like high-ranking generals and some of the intelligence uh, those guys got fired.
yeah, there was a
I don't
lot
know
of
if you recall
changeover.
that. Yeah, the rumor is it's because those guys gave Putin bad information that, hey, they're going to welcome us. Nobody's going to give us any pushback. We're going to walk through some of this stuff. And instead, they got pushback and they had some fighting. And Putin went, no, bad information. You're fired.
Well, and I
Imagine,
heard it was
imagine how much better their information got when you know that your job's on the line.
so I kind of heard some stuff that was kind of a meme that Russia was expecting to be welcomed as liberators. But that a lot of the information was more like, how are things going from a strategic and tactical perspective? Are you secure? Do you have supplies? Do you need anything? And they're like, no, we got this. We're good. It's kind of a hangover from the Soviet way of doing things, where if you complained, you got shot.
Sure,
Um, like you don't want to give bad news of like, oh, we don't have enough supplies. Oh, we don't have enough whatever. And that is why they got fired.
maybe.
Is because it was that kind of stuff. I don't know. Again, the you were expected to be there as liberators
But either
or
way,
yeah.
like it doesn't matter. I think the expectation for the most part was that they were going to get very little pushback. They were going to get it wasn't going to be that difficult for them to do. I think they knew that they were going to get pushback in like Mariupol
Right.
because that was the base of the Azov battalion, which their stated goal was to wipe out.
And it very well could have been, oh, they won't be able to mount much effort here. But then you had the big,
Yeah, I don't.
yeah.
This
But
the this the Azov Steelworks, right? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's but they should have known that because it's 8 levels underground and they know that they built it.
Right. Yeah, I think they're
So
kind of hoping that would
whatever.
go better, and it didn't. And
I think that yeah, there's a potential that they miscalculated those people's resolve, like
yeah,
how committed they were to their cause.
or
Because
just
from
how
what I
hard it would
understand,
be
that
to.
was really like there weren't any like real defectors from that overall. Like
Well, in
those
fairness,
dudes fought to the death,
yeah,
and in fairness, good call because I think he would have been executed anyway. But that's just my thought and
at least you
theory.
die with
But
your boots on. Yeah, no, um, yeah, I mean, I think what I sort of got the sense of was they realized they need to, because the West crushed their negotiations. My kind of pet theory here is that they had to reassess what this war actually was and start fighting
yeah,
the West, NATO, the NATO hegemony. And if you look at it, they have changed their tactics. They withdrew from untenable defensive positions, like with Kherson.
Kherson, yeah,
Yeah, Kherson. It's just like they're like, I was like, why are you withdrawing? I was
no,
like, oh,
Kharkov,
Kharkov. Well, both.
Kharkov in the north,
Yeah, well, Kherson
where
is.
Gonzalo Lira was. Kherson, they
Well,
did it where they just came back across
that's
the
what. That's why I
river.
was. Yeah, no, Kherson's what I was talking about. Like, why are you
Okay,
withdrawing here? You have this. This is a fairly defensible city, and
but
you
it's
find
not.
out, oh right, the way this crossing is, it is a mess to defend. You have to constantly defend it. But if you pull back across the river, it's easy to defend.
Yeah, I mean the big thing is if you look at it, like I looked at the map, there's one bridge.
Well, and that's what I didn't really realize was like,
One.
oh,
So
well, and then
if somebody like if somebody were to take that bridge out, you can't get resupplied, which means no more food, no more water, no more ammunition. Like you're caught and then you're stuck in there. It makes way more sense to back across the river, and if you need to, if you think you're going to get overrun, blow the bridge. You can always rebuild it
right.
and make
Well, and
them
that's
try to come across the river at you.
well,
That
and
makes
that's
sense.
and then they're talking about the dam further up north and what would happen given if like you were to coordinate an attack on the dam with the coordinate attack on Kherson at the same time, you'd be sunk,
Yeah.
potentially literally. But yeah, and
Well,
then that's what I mean. It's like they were strategically drawing from places that were hard to
yeah, but
defend.
that's recent. I was talking more like, yeah, that's fairly recent. I'm
I
talking
mean,
about
that's
early.
fall last year.
Yeah,
We
but I
saw
mean
this
like
sort of
that's
stuff. Yeah.
it's fall, winter, whatever. I mean like I think it was they were preparing for this spring offensive that unimpressive. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. No, I'm talking about the change in doctrine probably happened last summer was when you started to
yeah, that's
shift.
yeah, that wasn't Kherson. You're
No,
thinking
no, but
Kharkov.
is
Like we,
well,
I get
I'm
it. I
saying
get
this
what
was
you're
a
saying is that they're
this is a multiple, like this is a change in strategy. It's going to you're going to see the effects of that over the course of multiple months.
yeah, I don't think that's I think that's different. I think that was a strategic move that they did because they took Kherson and then said, you know what, we're gonna exfil anybody who's here that wants to come to our side, and then backed up across the river.
Yeah.
Whereas like when I'm talking about like they changed tactics, I'm talking about Kharkov in the
Hmm.
north, where they took Kharkov
Right.
and then that was a big Ukrainian like counteroffensive that they took Kharkov back. Well, turns out they had like 500 National Guardsmen. The
Yeah.
Russians did. That's all they left in in
Yeah.
Kharkov to like defend it.
Right.
Because I think what they did is that they were expecting like, oh, we don't have to really defend it that long, so they didn't allocate a lot of manpower and strength up there to do it. And so when the Ukrainians started coming at them, yeah, you retreat. Let them have the city. There's no sense in fighting them. Like you
Yeah.
500 against, you know,
Right.
10,000. No. And so yeah, I think that right there early, I think they did some like backup and regroup and let's look at the layout of the current battlefield and okay, now what do we need to do? And that's when you saw the switch where you seeing them drive to like Bakhmut, right?
Right.
Because it was like a centralized hub where Ukraine was being able to feed all of its military from that location.
Yeah. I mean, it. The strategy, I think, what I saw was a change from we're just going to kind of try to control territory to we need to control the fight, control where the fighting happens, how the fighting happens.
Hmm.
And so that was, and this is gonna be a fairly long change because the enemy doesn't cooperate. Um, because what I mean, and some of this is me reading between the lines, between the lines, between the lines. Like I'm, I'm just I don't have a ton of confidence in this. Is sort of just like a pet theorist. I'm looking at back at sort of the patterns of what I saw, and it sort of seemed like in the summer I sort of had them realize this needs to change, and then they started to reshape lines, choose where they're going to have strongholds, where they're what they can hold, what they can't reasonably hold, kind of at the moment.
Right.
With some things like, okay, we need to take this position and hold from there. And so there's a few of that. And that kind of went more, that was all part of the process until like late fall, winter of last year, was sort of what I saw shaping.
Yeah, kind of.
And then they kind of brought the fight a little bit in late winter.
The other thing that they were doing is they were, throughout that entire time, taking out air defense,
Oh, yes. I mean, that has been,
testing air defenses and taking out air defenses, because
yeah.
now is game on.
Well, and you like we were talking about this at one point. We're like, oh, that's why we haven't seen a lot of air activity. They've just been peppering their air defenses, not to take out targets, but to take out their air defenses.
Hmm.
Like you have cheap drones, cheap missiles, cheap things that they have to shoot down with a 10 times more expensive missile.
Well, I don't even know if it's that, but it's cheaper and more effective to send a missile that the air defense now has to try to shoot down that missile than it is. Like, that missile is a whole lot cheaper than an Su-57.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, a lot of them
Like,
are drones.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, if
Sure.
you go with the high end, like you go high end, if you fired nothing but missiles at them over and over and over and over, like, let's be real, the Russians know what the S-300s are capable of. I
Hmm.
think we I think we underestimate that. I think the US and the West underestimates what those the S-300s are capable of.
Yep.
And it scares me a little bit of what the S-400 is capable of, because it's upgraded with better equipment. Now they've taken some of the S-300s, Russia has specifically, and taken like the S-400 software and um, interface and retrofitted it for an
Hmm.
S-300, and I'm like, oh, you jerry rigging. I love it. It's like redneck stuff, right? Like that's what that is. Like, hold my beer, I'll make
grunt,
this work. And
grunts and graft a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, like, let's be real. Like, you didn't see a whole lot of Russian planes in the sky. Not a ton. Not
Well,
anything
and
like you've seen recently. And I think a
well,
lot of that was because they were aware of what their own air defense systems that they built, even though they're ancient, were capable of and were good at.
well, I
So
think,
why not take them out?
and my understanding is S300s have a lot of problems with low targets, or because they can pick up something if they're like, especially if they come down, they can get fooled by something on the ground.
You mean like a tractor in Poland?
Yeah,
Hypothetically,
hypothetically,
like that.
in
I know that
Minecraft.
would never happen, but there are two dead Polishmen who would
Yeah,
have something to say about it.
yeah. Well, and then that's the thing is, and so I think that's one of the reasons you don't see as many um, jets, but you see a lot more helicopters from the Russians.
I,
At least that's my
I've,
understanding.
I see. I've been hearing that you've been hearing that's everything.
I haven't heard any. A lot of the stuff I've been hearing about, oh, this was taken out by an attack helicopter. That was taken out by an attack helicopter. I haven't heard of anything being taken out by a jet.
Oh yeah, they're
But
flying high and they're running like there for a while. Whenever they were trying to destroy the front lines, that the Ukraine had built some fortified positions,
mhm.
and once they felt comfortable running planes in the air, that's what they were using because they were running the what was it, 500 and 1,000, 1,500 kilo bunker busting bombs. That's how they were emptying a bunch of them because
Okay.
they're way better at destruction of fortified positions than utilizing missiles.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what they were doing.
Yeah. I mean, I can
Now
believe it.
I'm sure in the wintertime they probably backed off that some, but I like it wouldn't. I mean, let's be honest. My guess is it's easier and faster to deploy helicopters than it is to mess with aircraft.
Yeah. I mean, you have
So
the helicopters can land
anywhere.
closer and be out of range based upon just like the angle of attack. Okay, well you hide behind a big building basically where the missile would have to come at an angle that would be hard for them to target. Um, you know, like that can provide some protection, right?
Hmm.
And you don't know where they are necessarily. If they're on the ground, parked and off, they're harder to find. You move them,
Yeah, not only can they land anywhere, they can take off from just about anywhere too, because
right?
you don't have to have an airfield within.
You just need a field.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean it's
I mean, if you look at like the U.S. air doctrine, like we used a lot of stuff, Blackhawks and Apaches, lots and lots. Probably way more. Like once the initial bombing campaign was done, probably way more than what we did air assets,
I mean
F-16s,
it's
F-15s. I mean, they use like some of the stuff like the A-10 Warthog for close air support, but an
well
AC-130 gunship every once in a while.
there's a lot of people that say the U.S. is messed up its air doctrine and its warfare doctrine a lot, especially with the equipment it's ordering.
I mean,
Um,
I would argue that they don't know how to fight a war anymore. I mean, won one since World War II,
it's because the goal was never to win, but to
or
enrich the
hypothetically.
certain people.
How dare you, sir? That is un. I mean, you're not wrong, but that's you're not supposed to say it.
It's just like see a red dot appear on my chest.
I mean, you heard the BlackRock dude. Like, war's good for
Yeah,
business, right?
yeah,
And talk about saying the quiet part out loud.
right. Well, I mean, it's our goal was never to like. I think we knew that winning a war in Afghanistan was never going to happen. Like, because it's what's our goal there? Well, our goal is to apparently spend money, at least towards the end.
Nation building,
Like,
right? That's the
what
deal, is
was it?
nation
Nation
building.
building though?
That was the stated goal. Let's go with
Stated
that.
goal, yes. But if you were to build a nation, how much of what we did would you do?
It's interesting you asked that. I usually use that same question kind of in reverse with regards to Democrat-run cities, but that's just me. Like if
Again, you're not
if your
wrong, but
goal
that's what.
if your goal was to destroy the city, like let's say hypothetically your goal wasn't, but if it was, what would you do differently than what they've done?
Doesn't
That one's
Tim Pool
always
or
one that gets
somebody?
people like pause.
Doesn't Tim Pool or something have like they hate liberals because everything they do just screws over liberals. That's clearly what Democrats seem to hate liberals because they mostly strike at the liberals, and
And you could
you
make
know,
that argument, but
and it's a little tongue in cheek, right? But
I have
like,
my other theories. But
well, like what they just wear some Morlock or whatever.
careful, careful. This is just episode 2, brother. Like it's not a good time to
Hey, well, the next general.
randomly commit like Ryan Reynolds and
Okay, I haven't
Deadpool.
heard about. Oh, got it. I
Ding
mean,
ding ding.
if we have to
And we'll
cancel
get
this
to edit
podcast,
that portion out of the podcast. But
You can edit it out. I'm not doing that shit. That's a lot of work.
it's no, it's not. It's just clip this section out and just start. Like, just pretend like
just,
it never
just
happened.
cut, edited for our safety. Cut.
Yeah. Our safety, meaning Chris's safety.
Hey, they can
Because
come find me.
no, I'm not gonna. Pretty sure they know where you are,
Probably.
but that's okay.
Um,
No, I mean, yeah, that's. But yeah, I mean, like, let's look at it. What are they gonna do? What are you gonna do? Why are you? What's the point in Russia? With Ukraine? I don't think it's.
the point in Ukraine,
I think
to protect Biden's assets.
no,
Should I stop saying these things?
no, that's not the case. If it was to protect Biden's assets, they would have let that deal close on an instant. Like, shut up, put it away, call it good, and let's not talk about this ever again. They just swept it under the rug so fast. But
Doesn't most
it's
of the
also been highly useful for them
well,
because it's amazing how whenever there's bad news that comes out, how there happens to be something going on in the Russia-Ukraine thing that hits the news and, obfuscates what other bad information came out. Like, there happened to be a Russian coup when everybody starts talking about the fact that Hunter Biden got a sweetheart deal that nobody has ever even come close to before, and gets felony charges for tax evasion reduced to two misdemeanors, and is getting deferred adjudication for a gun charge that has never happened.
yeah. I
I
mean,
I listened to Viva Fry podcast from last night, and yeah, Barnes was like, I went through all of them. It's
oh
never been
yeah,
the case.
no,
Ever.
like people are like, this
Hmm.
is a ridiculously sweetheart deal. Like it's
Yeah.
not. They're not even hiding it. They're just going, yeah, he's royalty, so.
What are you gonna? No, no, they're flaunting it in your face and going, "What are you gonna do about it?"
Oh, basically, yeah. Oh, Hillary's like, but her emails, like, oh, now is not the time. Like,
Bring that up.
mm, mm. It's just one of those like, you don't have rights, peasant.
Yeah. You don't. Who are you to challenge me
Oh
and
God.
what I have and what
Oh,
I
and
do
then
and how I say things and what I choose to
Garland
do?
recently when he's like, if you're questioning the DOJ
Yeah.
is a threat to democracy, it's just like,
That's all right.
do you guys
I
read
hear
this stuff
somebody is. I hear
back
some.
before you say this? Like,
No. They're so confident. This is why I'm confident we're gonna win.
that's gonna get bad first.
It's gonna get bad, no question. But if you look at it, this is the same thing that's going on with some of the other controversies that we don't need to talk about, right? But they thought they were doing fine. They went too far and they stepped over the line. I think you're going to see the exact same thing happen with this, and people are going to be like, wait a minute, no, 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 I have to be a hoarder and keep my IRS records for 7 years with threat of jail time and super, like, ridiculous
I'm
fines.
still not sure
And
how it doesn't violate. Was it the Fifth Amendment, Fourth Amendment? One of those
yeah, that's a
amendments.
yeah, but that's a different animal we can get to altogether. But
No, I know.
but like, regardless of that fact, is that okay? But this guy, they haven't even addressed some of the other things. Like, this is just part of it. Mind you, right now I'm calling this. It's gonna be a little bit
Calling
down
your
the
shot.
road. Yeah, I'm calling this out right now.
All right,
I
I'm
got
writing it down. I'm writing
two
it
big
down.
ones. No, you're not. Two big
Sean
call outs. Number
calls.
one is that they're going to cut a sweetheart deal, right? They're going to cut this sweetheart deal, and then somebody put this forward, and so it's not
Oh,
really
is this
my call,
about?
but I agree. I bet that, but I bet that in that would be probably like early summer, like a year from now,
Biden resigns.
May of next year. Biden steps down, and before he does, he pardons Hunter on the way out, and then you've got basically 6 to 9 months of Kamala lame duck because she's not going to get elected. So they'll run her like this will give them the opportunity to run Newsom because something happened to Biden. He had a health issue or something. Like
Oh
they'll
yeah.
that'll happen,
Um,
right?
you're saying this.
And so then Kamala goes out and she pardons Biden on her way out, and then you've wrapped everything up in a nice little bow.
Um,
Like
yeah. I
everybody's
mean
free
it's
and clear. And
it,
not only that, I think that I think, get this, I think that Biden will pardon Trump at the same time
no,
that he pardons Hunter.
nope, nope. I don't think so.
Because
Well,
here's the reason why.
things will have to change, but they're headed
The,
in that direction, so maybe.
the reason why is if you're on your way out anyway, and you don't like if you want to pay attention to this side and not look at what this hand's doing, hey, I'm gonna pardon Trump. Oh, and
It's the
by
way
the
of
way,
getting out of it.
I also pardoned my son for all the other shit that he did so he doesn't end up in jail.
It's sort of one of those like you can't. People will be like, okay, fine, because
No, it is literally just I mean like it's the Republican Party. You throw them a chunk of red meat every once in a while and they'll be
oh
fine
yeah,
and they'll be
no,
fat and happy and that's their chunk of red meat. Hey, all of these things that are going on with regards to your boy President Trump, I'm going to eliminate those. I'm going to
it
kick those
doesn't.
completely out. That's done. It's gone.
Right.
He doesn't have to worry about that anymore.
It doesn't matter that he never should have been charged in the first place. That it was all
Right.
bullshit anyways,
Right. That
and that
whoa, whoa,
they'll-
whoa. You're acting like stuff matters. No,
I
it's
mean,
more of, hey, we're gonna, this is, this is how I'm gonna make peace.
right, right.
I'm gonna pardon my
We're the
son
party
for
of
the stuff that he
unity.
did, and I'm gonna pardon Trump for the stuff that he did, and we're all gonna smile and hold hands and get along, and I'm gonna go eat my ice cream and my butt's been wiped.
I mean,
Chocolate,
I,
chocolate chip, y'all.
they should do that. I don't think that they are. I think they're too proud to do that. I think they're too narcissistic to do that.
Bet me.
I don't want to.
I
Um,
think the only thing that's holding it together right now that's keeping him in office is Jill. I think she likes the power. I think
oh,
she
I
enjoys being the
well, but
first lady, and
you're see,
you
you're
see
seeing
her
them turn on
dragging him
Biden.
around and pushing him to like steering him where he needs to go. Oh yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
that's the case, and I think the men in black suits with the briefcases are going to go up to them and be like, "This is what you're going to do, and this is how it's going to be." You're not going
the
to give them an
whole
option.
like, oh, no one ever showed her the other angle of the grassy knoll, huh?
Yeah,
Someone could do that.
right.
Um, but no, you're
That's
seeing
number
it.
one.
You're seeing it starts of it where they're already allowing people to turn on Biden in the media
Yeah,
and criticize him. And I don't think Biden's running next year. I think that they're trying to find a way for him in out. And there's a lot of speculation that it's a part of this sweetheart deal. Biden's going to resign comfortably in some way or
sure.
exit comfortably in some way. Kamala is the problem, though. So there is some hope, I think. There's a allegation of hope that the Democrats are hoping that they can get Biden to go along and push Kamala out somehow.
I don't think they care.
And I,
Newsom's your boy.
well, Newsom's their boy for sure. But
Newsom's who's going to run, and he's been showing all the telltale signs just in the last like few months. Like if anybody who doesn't see that read, like
oh
you're
yeah,
missing the boat. Like
oh yes,
he's
he's running. He's already running for honest.
he's running, he just hasn't announced. That's
Yes.
what's gonna like that's how it is.
But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think people will see through Patrick Bateman's facade here? Like
I
that guy
mean,
is a psychopath.
blue no matter who? No.
Yeah, that's kind of my fear.
I mean, California didn't care that while they were locked in their houses, their businesses were shut down and they literally went out of business and went bankrupt, that he was going and partying with his friends and donors at a 4-star French Laundry restaurant. Like, nobody cared.
No,
Didn't
no,
care.
no.
So no, I
It's
don't
it's
think
all it's because
it'll matter.
yeah. I mean that's yeah. Will it matter outside of California? Do you think people outside of California will start to see it a little bit? The
Maybe.
normies that are a little,
I don't I don't I
we'll
I
see.
think you're going to have a depressionary crash. I called that a year ago, that I expect that it's going to happen this autumn.
Well, first one, then the other.
Whatever. Yeah.
Fall, autumn, they're so close
Like
together.
we had that discussion a year ago, right? Like I said, it was going to be this
By that we
autumn
mean the
that
fall
was
of
going
this country.
to,
Uh,
and
I mean,
if that comes true the way that I expect it to, I mean, like, they may do some stuff. And again, I preface this by, if they just start money printer go burr, like, that's going to change things. I think that they're going to get involved and try to stop it as much as they can. I don't think they can hold it off all the way through November of next year, which is what they're going to try to do.
I'm
I
not
don't
even
think they
sure.
can.
I'm not even sure they can hold off the fall until autumn.
Yes.
Um,
I
like
see what
that's
you did there.
yeah, clever.
I agree.
I'm looking at signs within the market that are just terrifying. Um,
Unfortunately, here's the deal. Those things take a long time to play, a lot longer to play out than you would expect they do.
well,
Just
so
as a
some of it
general rule.
is, well, some of it's, well, some of this stuff is old and should be starting to play out about now. Some of this is like there's, what is it, the S&P 500 earnings, the average corporate bond earnings, and the treasury bond earnings are all at 5.3% return. That is crazy. That is a medium risk, low risk, and a no risk asset all having the same return.
And there's something wrong with that? I'm confused. Isn't that what it's supposed? Oh, no, that's not
Well,
how that's supposed to go?
for those
Yeah.
who haven't taken remedial, finance, um, your return should be proportional to the risk, and it should be relatively proportional. So if there is another asset that has better return but same risk, you'll go with that.
Yeah, I was wondering if I had it saved, but I don't. I actually saw a graph
Of that.
today. No,
Oh,
no, no. Um, of the division between assets held by banks and the valuations of the S&P 500,
yep. I think I
and they
see that.
usually track pretty close together, and there has been a deviation in that. And it's, yeah, I mean, but there's so many different things, right? Like, anybody who's not seeing this coming is just head in the sand.
Well, and
The
one of the
2
reasons
and 10 year started looking like it was going to come back to parity, and is now going further away, and is now set an all-time record between the 2 and 10. That's a
I think
problem.
100 basis points.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
100. That's a full point spread.
Yeah.
And as we all know, the commercial real estate market is tanking. That's going to crash.
It's
People are
fucked.
turning in the keys, rather than, like, they're not
They're
even
just here. You deal
renegotiating.
with it.
Yeah, they're not even renegotiating. It's just not worthwhile. It's
It's
like the lenders are coming out and saying, like, we were willing to renegotiate with them to try to keep them in the space, and they're just saying it's not worth it, and handing the keys over and being like, you can just have it. I don't care.
and
That's
which
not good.
basically means the banks are going to eat it because they don't know what to do with. They can't.
No,
If you can't.
that's no, that's
Oh,
not how
we're
that's
going to
going to
eat it.
go.
We're going to
There
eat
you
it.
go.
Yeah.
Ding,
Sorry.
ding, ding. We have a
The,
winner.
the banks are going to eat it. They're going to get full way too quickly and going to pass it on to us to eat.
Did you well, they'll pass it on. Technically, they'll pass it on to the federal government, and then the federal government will pass it on to us. But yeah,
Yes.
that will,
It'll
that's, have you ever
bite
seen the
slices.
human centipede?
Oh.
We're the third dude in line. Yeah. Now think about that. That makes you feel better.
No,
Don't
makes you feel
Google that
about the
on
same.
people. Do not Google that on a work computer
Or any
or any
computer,
computer, really. Like
really.
you probably don't want to see that. It's
It's
not pretty,
it's.
bad, but it's an analogy that works.
hmm Well, but the reason
So
I brought up the fact that the asset spread is because that's something that can fix itself fast. That is something that can fix itself in a month. But the way it fixes itself is a crash in corporate bonds and a crash in the market.
pay attention. Here's economics lesson for everybody. If you're not paying attention, there have been very, 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 very few times ever that the Fed has paused raising rates and then continued raising rates. Generally, what happens is they pause and then things break and crash, and then they start dropping rates. So, for anybody who's not paying attention, for the month of June, Fed paused, but then started talking really hawkish about they were going to raise rates, raise rates, raise rates. And if anybody's been paying attention to what the Fed's been doing, they talk one way, they talk about it the way that they want the market to react, and people do, and then they end up kind of laying off that or going the other direction. So if they say we're gonna, we're gonna raise rates, we're expecting to raise rates 50 basis points next quarter or next month, and they keep keep preaching that, and then they only raise it by 0.25, and they go, but next time it's going to be 0.5. We've got to get this under control, and we will do it. We're committed to it. And then the next iteration rolls around, 0.25. Like that's 25 basis points, 50 basis, whatever it is. Like just watch how they'll talk one way, and then that's not how they produce. My guess is, and and a lot of times you see that pause may last several months, but I
Mhm.
expect that they're not going to raise rates again. They might. I don't think they can afford to.
I
One,
I
the government can't afford to service the debt if they do. Two, you'll crash so many banks that nothing will be worth anything.
yeah, but their inflation's still on the rise. I think they've lost control.
No, it's not.
Well,
It's disinflation.
disinflation? You mean it's lessening?
It's a slowing rate of inflation,
Okay.
right? So we're still inflating, but at a slower rate. So
Okay, but
the
it's still
last print
high.
was, it's not that high. I
Last
mean,
I thought it was around 6%?
four,
4? Okay.
4.4, 4.3, something like that is what the last print was.
Which,
And and
if you
get
trust it.
this, now that's according to the official numbers. The
Yeah, if
actual
you
number
trust
is
it.
probably closer to 9. One,
Right.
two, they also changed the way that they do the calculation,
Again.
well, a few months ago. And
Right,
so
but
it
like,
used to be based off of the two previous years combined as like an average, and now they're doing it just off of the previous year. Well, since we had high inflation last year, it makes the inflation this year look less. Ta-da! And on top of that, they have yeah, that's a fist. Yeah, that's fisting. That's no lube. Um, kids, don't ask your parents about that.
or do.
Or or do.
Send me.
So the other side of that is that they've also recalibrated what their stated inflation goal is. It used to be 2% and try to keep it between 2 and 3, and they've recently started saying that they think that they need to be prepared to adjust that somewhere closer to like 3 or 3.5, maybe 4, which if they do that, then guess what? We're right where we want to be with our inflation, so we can lower rates now.
No.
Yeah, yeah, I know, right? Super happy. I
Oh,
mean, don't
for
worry,
those at home, like
don't worry.
for those paying attention at home,
You're gonna own
a
nothing, and you will
yes,
be happy.
you will be a debt slave for your entire life.
Yes,
That is what that will like. Given the state of the economy now, and a 3% targeted 3 to 4% target inflation, or just right around 3%, let's say, that starts making everything like just you need to be in debt basically because holding on to assets get expensive. If you're a normal person,
I don't,
like
I don't think so.
you don't think that's like you don't want to be, but in order like the average person in order to survive is going to make decisions that put them in debt.
That's my point. Is you shouldn't.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, I mean like that is what that does is what I'm saying. I'm like you need to avoid it. You need to find ways to not be in debt. You need to find ways to have assets that can increase in value faster than inflation instead. Um, but you need to be mindful of the evaluation of those assets. And
You
yeah,
need to educate yourself on economics and finance. That's what
yeah,
you need to do.
it's increasingly important that you include economics and finance in your in your information environment.
Yeah, not increasingly important. It is a dire necessity for your survival in the future.
Yeah, I mean
It's not
that's
like it's literally life or death. That's what I'm going to argue.
I was getting more that it's increasing towards that in term based on your timeline. But yeah, it's
Yeah, but how long did it take you to learn economics and finance to understand it well?
it depends on the degree of that. I mean, I guess you could
Rough
say a
guess. Just,
while, but I don't know how you track the fact that I've always paid attention to stuff.
but I mean, like you've understood and known the implications and how that was going to go and how this was that and everything else.
Less so in finance,
Okay,
but economics, sure. Like I took a quite a like I liked economics. I took a quite a few. I
your
was
classes and your classes in college and university don't count.
as studying economics.
Yeah, because they don't really teach you. They teach you the theory of economics, not real economics.
Well, you mean you're referring then more to finance? That's going to be more of the like looking at the
I'm not going
planning
to
of that.
argue with you over semantics.
But
Like, how long have
um,
you been studying finance? How long does it take you to learn?
to apply the stuff that I've learned in the real world, it maybe took a year to
Year or
figure
two,
that out.
right? Like, just say a year or two,
Sure,
right? And your average IQ, above average IQ.
I'd say I'm above average IQ.
Okay. So if you're at average IQ and if you're above average IQ and it takes 2 years or a year even, if you're average IQ, expect that it's going to take you 5 because you're not going to be able to
Yeah,
dedicate time to it. Or you might be able to and you just won't. But
yeah. I mean that's
like it's
like,
going to take if you dedicate time to it, you can do it. And there's some good there's some good resources out there, but
but I don't
own
think
it.
you need to. I don't think most people need to understand this stuff to the degree that I do.
Okay. I think
Like
most people don't understand any of it.
that is fair.
The base level of like, and I'll be clear, I didn't understand it. Like I still remember whenever I had my epiphany about like I like crypto. I Bitcoin fan, right? But
Hmm.
I like the tech. I like the idea. I like the technology. And I had an epiphany the other day is that hey, if everybody's transacting everything in Bitcoin, there's no taxable transaction.
I mean,
So if you bought a car from somebody in Bitcoin, the only difference is that you have to register it, right?
yeah,
But if you bought if you bought eggs from somebody for Bitcoin,
I would like to point out that this is not legal or financial advice,
This is not, I'm just saying
and that you should
hypothetically.
talk to a lawyer before engaging in tax fraud or
It's
potential tax fraud.
no, it's tax avoidance.
I maybe um,
Hypothetically.
I'm
What if
just
you used what if you used Bitcoin to purchase gold, which you can do?
yeah,
Like there are exchanges that you can,
sure.
they have it shipped to your house. It's as good as, it's actually probably better than fiat. But
I mean, I'm pretty sure that you have to pay you probably the IRS probably states that you have to pay the dollar equivalent of that in for a lot of these taxes.
well, let's be clear. You might have to pay the dollar equivalent of, you might have to pay the like sales tax
Yeah.
on the gold that you bought. But say you bought the Bitcoin at right now. So you bought it now, 30,000 roughly.
Hmm.
And Bitcoin in say 2 years roughly gets up to, I don't know, 150, 180. And at $180,000 per Bitcoin, instead of cashing it out and then using that money to go buy gold, you still have to pay sales tax on the gold anyway. But instead, you just send the Bitcoin directly to the gold dealer. The gold dealer mails you the gold. You pay the sales tax on it. That's fine.
Hmm.
But you never converted the Bitcoin back into fiat.
Oh, there's
And there would be, like, if you did that, if you had, say that Bitcoin was worth 180K, that's $150,000 worth of either capital gains or
right,
income, depending on how long you'd held that Bitcoin, that you would potentially be liable for taxes on.
right,
But
but
if
it
you
had
never
only
actually converted it
converted it into cash, yeah,
to
into
fiat
USD. Yep. Well,
on a
and
centralized exchange,
yep. Oh, and
the
there's
same could
some
hold if you wanted to say hypothetically buy real estate in another country.
yes, no, there is a lot of ways you could do tax avoidance for even
Careful, don't say the E word.
the other
Yeah.
stuff. Um, with Bitcoin, if you are sophisticated.
If one was so
Um,
inclined.
yeah, I mean, I think that there is a strong use case for cryptocurrencies in reinforcing, regaining some of our rights, let's say, in
Yeah,
practice, because we've
and
always had them.
yeah, and let's be real. Like the reason the initial start to that, like I didn't understand that whenever I first got into Bitcoin. I had no idea, no clue.
Mm.
I thought it was a scam. Like I'll be real about it. And then I was doing some research. I was like, I need to educate myself better about it. And I remember whenever, like when I realized, like I had that like light bulb aha moment. It was whenever like somebody made the point. They're like, well, people say, oh, well, Bitcoin's not backed by anything. It's like, yeah, well, neither
The
is the
USD
U.S.
dollar.
dollar
Oh
since
yeah.
1971, 72.
Well, there was like a there might have been some big finance guy or chairperson of the Fed or something or big name guy in business world, let's say, got up there and was like, "Oh, Bitcoin's worthless. If I had all the Bitcoin and I asked you, you know, how much, and I wanted $1,000 for the Bitcoin, would you give it to me? No, that'd be crazy. What are you going to do with it? Pay me back?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but now do that with dollars." Right? If one person holds all of the dollars, they're just as worthless as if somebody holds all of the Bitcoin.
Well, except for they're ones and zeros on a computer, and they can infinitely print more, as they've
Right.
very clearly proven. Whereas Bitcoin, on the other hand, there will only ever be 21 million.
Bitcoin's just decentralized fiat.
Yeah,
Instead of the fiat being backed by a single entity, i.e., the US government, is backed by the network.
i.e., guns.
Mostly predator drones, I think.
I mean, the what is
Missile
it?
maybe?
The full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Is that the name of a
That's
battle
I think.
cruiser? Or
I mean, like that's
is that the
if
new
in
name of
fairness,
our
if I was
carrier group?
if I was ever to be elected president, which Lord knows that would never happen,
Oh, I
um,
wouldn't vote for you.
that would definitely be what I would name a destroyer or something like. What is
This
this?
is the
What
bet.
is this
We're gonna
aircraft carrier? It's the full faith and yeah,
no no. So you call one carrier group full faith, and the other one the credit.
yeah,
Between the two, it's the full faith and credit of the United States, and that's what backs our dollars.
yeah. But that's an aircraft carrier and a destroyer. I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Well, you'd probably do the whole carrier group because they really operate as a unit.
Yeah.
But
Anyways,
yeah.
all right.
On that note, I think we've
We are at 2 hours.
pissed off enough government agencies for the day,
It's too bad because
and
I really wanted to have this conversation about the Second Amendment limitations.
there's we can do that later, another time. I,
None.
I think I think talking about Russia
None.
leading into the Ukrainian corruption market that is their chief export of Ukraine, and going into how the economy is just screwed. I think that was a good one, though.
Yeah, I think so.